Welcome to our Embodied Divinity, the podcast where we normalize our spiritual gifts and the miraculous and fucked up ways we realize and actualize them in our lives. The whole point is to hopefully make the journey of spiritual awakening, this journey throughout the course of our entire lives, less confusing, more connected to each other, and to remember how we soothed ourselves by taking the tools we hear others use and trying them on. And we've already done this. It's also a way for me to share with the world some of the most incredible humans that I've met along my journey, 43 and counting countries in 43 years. Some of my guests have come fully into their own gifts and are doing their own and divine embodiment work in the world. Some are anywhere in between, in and out of the matrix. And some just love who they are and are doing the work silently unseen in the world, and probably may not even have realized yet that they're doing it. But make no mistake, all of us, you are just like them. We are all here to share our unique magic with the world. And so we got to give it a voice so it can be shared. So I am beyond ecstatic to be meeting today with Jeanie Baker. My energy awakener is what comes to mind when I think of you, Jeanie. Our first meeting was just wow. So a bit about Jeanie. This by far does not encompass the allness that she is. She was born free spirit and for a long time forgot that and lived an uninspired life that felt like it was not her own. Traumatic experiences with sexual abuse, grief, limiting beliefs, self-judgment affected the way she perceived her worthiness in the world. She was stagnant and stuck in a life that one day during a yoga class in 2002, she felt an explosion in her heart that scared the shit out of her in the best way possible. She felt so inspired that even without a clue as to what she was doing, started a journey of rediscovering herself and reconnecting with her soul. And for 20 years has been committed to living intentionally and practicing daily embodiment. She believes life is a beautiful spiral of feeling, healing, changing perspective, forgiveness, and transformation. She supports and empowers others to heal emotional imprints, transform them into empowerment, to live a life that is authentic and unique to you. This is her motherfucking jam. And she is here to support you as you invite a dance with your human and your spirit and expand your self-expression into alignment with your highest vibration. She lived in Costa Rica for 7 years, where I fortunately met her, and recently moved to St. Petersburg, Florida, after asking to be spiritually guided to the physical place in the US of A. She's grateful to connect in this community and to support you to transform your life from the inside out. Jeanie, the most sacred connection is with your authentic self. Thank you so much for being and existing in this world. Thank you so much for making the time to be here with me and to have your sacred words go live into the world through this format. I am just beyond honored to have you.
Thank you. Brought tears to my eyes, like you sharing that, and always like when I hear my own like bio, if you will, I get inspired by her story, and then I have to be like, oh yeah, that's fucking my story.
Wait a minute, she's talking about me. Hell yeah.
That's so interesting. I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you want to, anything more that you want to share? We did a little convo beforehand, but is there anything that needs to be cleared, shared, expressed before we hop into the podcast, the topic questions?
Me, I think the biggest thing to share at the beginning is like when you get out of your own fucking way, like that's where it all happens. Everything. And so that is like a daily thing for most of us. Just continue to get out of our own way. Yeah, so people let life flow through us, man. Like, so important. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you get out of your own way? The
Well, I
best.
talk to myself a lot.
Yeah.
It's like, I think that's been an interesting path of like, back in the day, I think like when meditation was like coming to us, here in this US world, it was like, oh, quiet mind, shut it off, shut it off. And then what everyone's realized is, no, it's not the point. The point is to understand what your thought patterns are. So then if you want to make some shift on your thought patterns, then you can. And so that's been for me, like just understanding, like if I feel stressed, what thought patterns come up versus when I feel more in flow, those thought patterns don't exist. Like a few days before my cycle, I have a whole thing that happens in my head about my body. And then I realize, oh, that happens right before my cycle. And then I'll be like, oh, yeah, I know where I am now. Let's change that. Yeah. So that for me is the key.
Yeah. The power of rewiring.
Yeah. I love it. Love that shit so much.
Yes.
And it's, and it's constant, right? Like,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I feel like that's the biggest, letting go of judgment consistently. Notice it, let go of it. Notice it, let go of it. Observe it, let go of it. Like that's where we're at every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
important. Thanks for bringing that forward.
Yeah, for sure.
So just to give everybody a picture of it, can you speak to how we met each other?
Yes. So I lived in Costa Rica for 7 years, and I'm trying to remember. I was like, oh, is it 2015? I think we met, maybe 14. And I
Yeah.
offered my healing services. I called them intuitive healing sessions at this yoga retreat center. And I believe I had dinner with your group beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And, that sticks out anyway, right? This like fiery hairs, you know what I mean? Like from New York, like, and you booked a session with me, and that's how we connected. And then I remember years later, you're like, I have something to tell you. I think you might even said like, I have a confession. And I was like, okay, what's that? And you're like, I didn't even like you when I met you. And I was like, I've heard this before. Like, it's like, 'cause I have owned that now in my own personality. Like, I can challenge people to their mirror.
Yeah.
Well, everyone does, but I now understand that. Like, I challenge people to their mirror. And then if you're not ready to live in your truth, I'm the last person you want to be around. That's it.
Yeah.
And we have been friends ever since whatever year that was. Yeah.
Yeah, because you transformed me.
Hmm.
You walked into the whatever that first meal was that we had with the retreat, and you were like, "Hola!"
Oh, yes.
in your like rainbow tie-dye. And I was just like, "What?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you did a Reiki healing session on me, and I shuddered. And people afterwards felt like the shockwave go through the ether
Yeah.
from what you had released from me.
Yeah.
You awakened me to the awareness. And you said at the time, I don't know how much of this you remember. I remember it like it was literally like 2 seconds ago. You just said, I see 3 men all over your body.
Oh yeah. I got chills now.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't know who they are. I don't know what it means, but there's 3 faces all over you everywhere I went. And I knew exactly who they were. And those 3 were the biggest like catapult into my transformation into really who I am today. So thank you.
You're most
Because that just set off my ability to even recognize them and then to begin this journey of releasing.
welcome.
And I couldn't be more grateful to you, Jeanie.
Hmm.
You're magic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
My heart received that. I'm so grateful. Like, thank you. You're most welcome. And thank you so much. Like, wow. For me, like being a channel of healing, whatever we want to call it, Reiki, whatever, is like, it's a gift for me. Like, it's an honor. It's a privilege. Um, in my own journey, like I take that shit super seriously. Even with my own sacred contracts of how I show up for people. And so, yeah, like I love that we both have embodiment in our business, like that for me is so important.
Yeah, and like we were talking about earlier about like having these elders in our lives as embodied beings doing this soul work in the world, that I needed you, at that point in my journey, and at several times. I mean, when
Yeah.
I've called out to you and were able to do distance,
Yeah.
exact specific healing. And there's things that I wasn't able to express that were major blocks in my life, that you were the only person that I just knew, like, this is safe with Jeanie. Like, I can share whatever, and it's 1,000% like there's absolutely no judgment. I can say whatever. You even were like, you don't have to tell me. You can just write it. You can think it. You would do whatever. I'm still gonna fucking, I don't even know what you do, but I'm still gonna break that shit up and get it out. Right. Because it's just you recognizing. And I literally, no one really knows what anyone does, but I don't know how you do it, but you just do it. You just know, and you see it, and you set it up. And anytime I've ever reached out to you, you're just like, yep, okay, where are you? Great. Give me a visual. Got it. Be here at this time. Yep, great. And it's like, nothing else is required. I just automatically go, oh yeah, it's already shifted. Look at that. Yeah. It's truly magic. And I know you use the term magic a lot, but it truly is.
And I use it with a J for Jeanie.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, for me, like, just to live in that space, like when I constantly, it just open to whatever, like, so before we started this podcast, like officially, Beth and I were talking about, different life circumstances and things. And, the relationship with my mom has transformed beyond the physical realm. My mom passed away when I was 27. My mom never took responsibility for her life and her choices. My mom stayed in the struggle, stayed in the suffering. And 3 years ago, my mom swooped in. I was on the way to New York, and that's where we were together a lot in New York. That's where I was born. And I feel like my mom sprinkled all of her energy around that state. Every time I go there, I feel her stronger. But as I was entering, getting closer, she swooped in, also with my dog that passed away. She swooped in the car. We were just hanging out. And then all of a sudden, she's like, I'm ready to take responsibility for my whole life. And I was like, what in the actual fuck is going on? Like, I had to pull over. Like, and practice, like, before this, I started crying. Like, before she even came in and before I felt her, I just started crying. And I was like, what are these tears for? The emotion, I could not identify the emotion. It was like something I've never felt before, and it wasn't attached to a feeling. And I was like, what is this? And I'm just crying. And then she came in, and then she said what she said. And then I had to pull over and be like, holy fuck. And I was like, I never thought I would get that in this life, because she had passed away when I was young, like.
Yeah.
And then another life experience gave me the reality of limitlessness. Like, stop, don't limit shit, Jeanie. The world is everything. So just trust this shit, like, yeah. And it continues to show up, like, continues. And that is like getting out of our own way, letting go of judgment. Like, that's also part of my mission. So I'm so glad that you felt that. Like, for me, anyone can tell me anything in a session, and like, It's just what it is. Like, it is what it is. And
Yeah.
I've learned now also to trust my intuition with everything that I feel. You know, I
Mhm.
grew up, which is like part of what we're going to talk about too today, is like, I grew up and my mom told me, no, you can't.
Yeah.
And so like, I felt everything from people, what they were processing, what they felt. And I'd be like, hey, what's going on? And somebody'd be like, oh, nothing. And it's like, but that is counterintuitive to what I feel.
Yeah,
Right. So
that's not
then,
true.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not true. And like, you know, when you're young, the emotional intelligence that you hold, you can't articulate that. Right. Until you
Mhm.
get older. And then you're like, oh. And so now it's like every single message, no matter if I think it's stupid or not, like, trust it, because it always, my intuition always serves me in my personal life, in my work life, in sessions, um, through time and space, on coaching calls, on my retreats, on distance healings, all of it, all of it. Yeah. And that has been, it continues to be a journey, you know, because I've heard a voice since I was 3. So, and now I just let the voice guide me wherever we need
Wow.
to.
Yeah, that was my first question. Like, when did you first start? Like that's when you first recognized there's something beyond what's what you can see and
Yeah.
touch.
I remember telling my mom I could hear her voice when I was 3. And she's like, you know, okay. And then I remember, like, you know, I think a lot of us have what people consider imaginary friends when we're younger. Like,
Hmm.
I had a whole team, of community of friends when I was younger. Like like everywhere. And also like new friends would come in all the time, right? My mom couldn't see them. I could only see them. And also being an only child, it was like really comforting, you know, because if I couldn't go out and play with my you know, physical friends, like all these people were always around me.
Yeah.
And
And you
then,
remember these, you know,
oh, for sure, yeah, for sure, like for sure.
yeah.
And I remember when it shut down too, because I remember always, like, you know, sharing, like, because my mom, you know, she was, you know, the like a double negative. Like my mom was kind of like a double negative. Oh, Jeannie, you can be everything you want, and you need to do this, this, and this. Oh, Jeannie, you know
But
you can
I
do.
can't.
You're like, what? And so that's the way I felt too. So then after, you know, I was like, oh, I can share all this with my mom, and then now I understand her own, you know, projection in life. Right? It's like after so
Yeah.
long for saying no, you can't. Then I shut it all down, and that was probably around, you know, 8 to 9. But also, like, when I was 8, I told my mom, like, I'm here to break all the patterns. What the fuck? Like, you know. And my mom's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I don't
How did
fucking
you
know.
even know that? Yeah, you
I
didn't
don't
even
know.
know. It
It
just
just
like,
came out. Yeah. I even said it in high school again, like, remember telling her in high school, like, so there was always part of me that still was connected in that way, because I feel like it, like, I have a theory, like, all of us are healers, all
uh-huh.
of us are impacts, and then
Hmm.
it's about choices that we make in our lives, you know, because, you know, just like Hitler, he wasn't born Hitler. You know, it's the
Yeah.
energy that he fucking fed. And so it's all a choice. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's super interesting. Hmm.
And what was different about like what you were experiencing? I mean, we know a bit like what your mom was saying. Like, I can remember you telling me, like, she was just saying, like, no, that's not, that's not real,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
like, what was your experience of like other people around you, like your, maybe friends or, people at school, teachers, or like, and how did you feel? Like, were you knowing? Did you have something that you drew from that was helping you to navigate it and still stay with it? Or was it like was it really challenging? Like, what was it like?
It was all of that. Um, you know, I remember when I was young that you know, I didn't have the language that I do now, right? So this is
Yeah.
like language and reflection. So when I was young, I had an inner knowing about shit that I had no idea about, like no idea about. And like all
Yeah.
the adults would always come to me with their issues and their problems to solve. Always,
Wow.
always. And so also like when my grandfather died when I was 5, like I saw him all the time after, all the time. And then my mom's like, no, you don't. So that it was a constant of this, of this. And even like, in high school, feeling other people like shutting down, like that voice I didn't hear for a long time. Like when I shut that shit down, like in like when I was 8 or 9, that voice didn't come to me until I think I was 19 again. Yeah, I think I was 19. So my boyfriend, who I would end up marrying later, broke up with me on our 2-year relationship anniversary. And he just like started packing up all his shit. He had some stuff in my house. And as he was packing, the voice came back. And it said, he's going to call you in 7 days. And the voice also said, so I have a lot here. So I also used to come out of my body a lot, like levitating out of my body. Like when I would sleep, I could see myself sleeping. So what I've also learned because of my sexual abuse when I was 3, I learned to come out of my body as a mechanism, as a tool, if you will, for protection. And so I would do that a lot. And this is now what I support people with. Like, because most people aren't living in their bodies in general. So this is like my bigger work in the world is to guide people to understand what that means for them to fully be in their body so they can fully experience life. Bam.
Yeah.
When I was younger, all the time, like, oh yeah, I would see myself all the time sleeping. I would see myself like engaging like in activities. I would come out of my body all the time. And then when I was 19, the voice came back. So as he's breaking up with me, and I'm like on the stoop, crying, bawling, and also begging him not to leave, okay? So came out of my body. The voice said he's going to call you in 7 days. And then maybe it's my higher self, I don't know, was like, stop, look at yourself. All this happening at the same time. And I'm seeing myself being crying, begging for someone not to leave me.
Yeah.
It was almost like, we always want to rationalize like in our brain, like, but it almost feels like, my higher self was like, and my soul was like, fuck that. Like, we're not engaging in that behavior. And
I'm out.
I'm out. And we want you to see like, what the fuck?
Come take a look from over here. Yeah.
And guess what? He called me in 7 fucking days. So that started a connection again with my voice. And then in that yoga class a few years later was like another connection. And then I equate it to, I started serving myself in different ways. I mean, that journey was long for sure to get here, but it was like small things that you can do that serves you, that serves your heart, that serves your soul, that serves your body, like all of this. Like for me, it's that. Because the voice that I hear, it's not my voice. It's not a man's voice or a woman's voice. Like there's no tone to it, like masculine, feminine, nothing. It's a voice. It's a voice. And I've heard it since I was young. And now that voice is with me every single day.
Wow. This also brings up for me, just like when you started talking about coming out of your body and looking back at yourself, you were like in a state of yoga nidra, essentially. And it just linked for me. I have another friend also in, this doing this starseed, whatever work in the world, and others also that have experienced sexual abuse at a young age, and that this tool is like, it's innate. This is what it seems like to me, that this just like is actually a gift. Yeah. And that's what kind of, maybe it was one of the initial catapulters of you remembering that divine connection, because like your higher self was like, we're coming up here, check it out, You're not in that. That's not your body. That,
So,
like, yes, we need to be embodied in this lifetime, experience it. And also we do still have that ability to, it's not like dissociation. It's more like observation, stepping into
yeah,
the observer point of
yeah.
view, so you can be like, I'm not dealing with that right now. I am spirit, so I'm going to go into spirit now to like save myself from this. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's super interesting because there's a fine line between disassociation when you leave your body and being able to observe what happened, right?
Yeah.
So then
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
later come back and like feel it and heal it. Like I feel like that is such a fine line. And I think those of us that um started this at an early age, for protection,
Yeah.
we also used it later for disassociation.
Mm-hmm.
So then as we grow and our emotional intelligence grow and we choose to be on this journey of, self-discovery and shit, it's like then, oh, how do I marry the two? How do I acknowledge both of that? And that's for me now what I call the dance with the human and the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what, because I am logic, I am intuition, I am flesh, I am energy, I'm all of that. And so it's like, how do I dance with both of it and also understand if I'm starting to like come out of my body for whatever reason, like there's a moment now that you can feel it. Like even my clients, like that have this, component to themselves, when they start to really embody themselves. I'm going to use that word, embody themselves.
Yeah.
They can actually fine tune it when they actually feel themselves leaving. It's fucking amazing. And then you'd be like, oh, okay, what the fuck's going on? Like, am I safe? Because at the end of the day, it comes down to safety. And like
Yeah.
now, like that's a big buzzword now, like on the social medias and shit, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, like I don't take that shit lightly at all. It's like
Right.
no, like this is like most people have felt unsafe in their lives for many different reasons. Um, and so for me, when I learned how to feel safe in my own body, then I would actually live in my body more and life started falling, just flowing through me versus like me pushing against it. I'm sorry for hearing some dogs in the background. I'm dog sitting, just in case.
It's okay. I know you always got dogs.
I love the puppies.
Yes, you
I'm a, I'm a,
do.
I'm a wolf spirit, actually. Every single time I've done journeying, shamanic journeying, I'm a wolf. And I always go in to be like, okay, if there's another spirit that wants to come through, like I'm open. And they're like, listen, bitch, you're the wolf, and now own the wolf. And I was like, okay. And even like it's funny, like some clients before we meet, like, they'll be like, oh, I had a dream about a wolf last night, and I'll be like, oh, we super connected. Like it's super interesting.
That's so cool. Yeah. I was coming to you. Hi. A little pre-hello. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
This
I,
is
and I feel
amazing.
like, finding support, that's been a big, that's been a big part of my own journey. It's like finding support of like friends, community, practitioners that like believe you. Like,
Yes.
so I've been reflecting on, when you asked me to be on here, a few things about my life. And I remember working with a healer years and years and years ago, and her saying, "Oh, you're a healer," and I was like, "What?" And like that's before my theory, and that's before I like came back all into me. And I
Yeah.
remember like that being like such a moment of like, oh, she can see me, another part of me that I don't see. And I
Mm.
always try to remember that with clients because, that's important. That's important for us to be heard by someone, to be seen by someone, to be felt by someone, because a lot of
Mm.
times it takes somebody else saying that or doing that or feeling that before we see it ourselves or feel it ourselves. Or right. So that's been interesting to stay connected to in my support of people.
Yeah. And you understand that more because of your experience.
Yeah. And I feel like people that have children, that choose to have children in this life, that is, one, it's a privilege, it's a gift, it's an honor. And two, the more that you work on your own emotional intelligence, excuse me, you can support your children. Right? Because those of us who had parents with different levels of emotional intelligence, had that been different, probably I wouldn't have as much suffering in this life as I have had. Do you know what I mean? I would have chose different things. And so that for me is a big part of, I say I fully came out in 2013, which it was like the mission was bigger than me. It was just like it wasn't like a business. Like that's what's so interesting, I think, in this journey. It's like I didn't come out in a business. Like I came out as me. Yeah. Like,
I'm not launching anything. I'm just
I'm not
here.
launching anything. I just have a fucking business name. I just like, this is fucking who I am. And I have this mission to continue to support myself and others. And that's what I'm going to do. And, and even moving back to the States, like, I was like, oh, you got to brand yourself. You got to have a business. You got to do this. You got to do marketing and all that. It's like, oh, it's like so counterintuitive to like your intuition, but it's part of that human. That's what the human requires in this life,
Yeah.
It's super interesting. And then it's like, okay, how do you support yourself of who you are and let it all move? I don't know.
This is so cool that this is why this makes so much sense to me that I am Jeanie Baker.
I am Jeanie Baker.
Like, it's just like, there's no anything else. It's just like, I am. Like, this is what I am. Who, what, everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
It totally encapsulates all of that.
Yeah. And there's a shift coming for me. I have no idea what it is. I felt it. I mean, this might be my Italian citizenship that I'm working on, but like last year, like in the summer, I kept feeling like, oh, there's a fucking shift happening, Jeanie. I don't know what it is, but it kept telling me there's a shift. And then now it's like, I'm moving to Europe. I'm working on my Italian citizenship. Like this whole other thing has opened up that like wasn't even in my radar. Like, and this has been a dream of mine since 19.
Wow.
Yeah. And I
All
feel
right, so
go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't want to cut you off. Did something else need to come out there?
Go ahead.
I'm just curious about like what do you view were the pains that you experienced that you overcame to get to this point? And how did you use like your body specifically, because you speak to embodiment a lot, to work through it?
Yeah. I love that question. So I feel like part of our human like has to have some pain in order to move through things. And I think like as we grow our emotional intelligence, that can lessen. The suffering can lessen because we start making choices that serve us more now. And so for me, I call it emotional imprints because I started learning that based on different life experiences, I had imprinted in my body, imprinted in my cells, imprinted in my brain, all emotional imprints. And one of those, sexual abuse, I had imprinted that. I became, I've had sex with a lot of people, I would also have like random sex, sex that wasn't serving, who I was. And then the more like I dove into my own healing, that started being less, that suffering, right? Even though I thought I was having fun, right? And it was my choice and I'm a fucking empowered woman. I'm going to sleep with whoever the fuck I want to, like, yes, and, right? And then Yes, and then when you know better, you do better. But then your muscle memory knows that, so then it tries to continue to keep the pattern going. And then one day you're just like, what in the actual fuck? And then I remember the last time that I had sex with like a random dude that I had just met. I remember the last time because I threw up. I threw up in the bed with him. I threw up in the shower, and I'm not a thrower upper.
Wow.
And everything in my being was like, you're fucking done with this. And I said, yeah, I'm fucking done. And that was the last time. And I think that was like 2015 or 16. 15. Yeah, 2015. And that was the last time.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And it was like, I love Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth. Like, it took me 7 years to read that book. But that book changed my life. When he talked about the pain body in chapter 4, it's when I put that book down and I said, fuck you, Eckhart Tolle, I'm not fucking reading this shit. And then 7 years later, the book came back to me, and then I read it. And when we start to understand our pain bodies more, why we choose certain things, why when we're sad, we'll choose a movie that feeds that sadness. Like if I'm missing my mom, dude, energetically, my pain body will choose a movie that the mom dies.
Yeah.
It's not even in the title or description, right? It goes there. So now in the self-awareness, I'm like, oh, okay, I chose a movie. I miss my mom for this hour and a half. We're going to be in it. And then we're done, because I want to create less self-suffering for myself moving forward. And so when I, if I start to get back into a self-suffering momentum, if you will, then I have to stop and be like, okay, Jeanie, what's going on? Because right now you're forcing life and you're not letting it flow, right? Because everybody shit's the same. Like we're all here together. We're all fucking equals. Like it's also fun. I like to tell people that, like, let's work with fun. If it wasn't fun, I wouldn't be doing this for decades. So,
yeah.
I have a hashtag, like this shit's real,
Yeah.
some awesome things will just happen, like, what the fuck, like my mom, like, used to turn on the coffee maker for a year straight. We used to have afternoon coffee. My mom would turn on the coffee maker at 3 o'clock every afternoon for a year. My coffee maker would just turn on for a year.
Wow.
You can't make that shit. But I feel like a lot of us in that pain, in that suffering, it's like when we start to love ourselves more, then that lessens.
Yeah.
Like it starts to diminish less and less. Like, for sure. So my thing now is like, love yourself more, Jeanie. Love yourself more. Because when I love myself more, I don't put up with people's bullshit. Like when I love myself more, I make sure that I take care of myself, self-care, self-love, whatever you want to call it. I'm doing all the shits, When I love myself more, I'm dedicated to XYZ. Like that is now, like, I even talk to clients about this. Love yourself more.
Yeah. What's the more that you could do for you? Yeah. I love that. My word of the year for 2024 is more.
Is it?
So I love it. Yeah.
I love
it. Yeah. And what it sounds like to me is that in like that process, correct me if I'm wrong, that you go through like specifically sexual abuse, and then it was like the medium through which you kind of played out that like pain.
Oh yeah.
On a cycle until you came to a point. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's timelines for it. It's like, yeah, you couldn't have gotten there any other way until you're fucking puking everywhere and like, all right, well, that's it. This is it. This is the last one. Like, okay, I'm done now. I'm done. Like I went through it, right? Like there's no way out but through. You have to go through it. You can't like, there's nothing to feel guilty about or shameful about. It's just like, yep, I worked that shit out. That's how it happened. And now I'm good.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I think it's important, right, to, as far as like the guilt and different things, because was there other decisions and routes that presented itself and invited me to do? Yes, there was. I was already getting the message before that shit. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, stop this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was already getting those messages. And for whatever reason, I needed the suffering in that moment. I needed that pain in the moment. I needed that humiliation to throw up, right?
Yeah.
Next to someone, right? Like, to be like, did you not get it? We fucking told you. Are you gonna fucking like, oh yeah, bitch, I'm done. Like, I'm fucking done.
Like, that's disgusting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's my whole thing of like, love myself more, because Jeanie Baker, who I am today, versus Jeanie Baker, who I was at that stage, is different. And I love myself more. And hopefully every day I love myself more than I did the day before. And invite myself to learn, like, see it. Right? Do I need self-fostering? No, dude, I'm good. And I think especially when we're younger though, because Mother Teresa, she really put in that energetic cord for a lot of the human beings on the planet, like, you got to be
Yeah.
poor, you got to self-suffer, like, in order to learn and be of service of the world,
Yeah.
and it's like, actually, no, there is going to be some suffering because we're fucking humans and we have a brain and this is how shit
Mhm.
works. And also, we can alleviate a lot of our self-suffering if we listen to our fucking intuition.
Yes. Yes. So what's
Yeah.
one thing that you do or have done or want to do to do that more? What's one way you love yourself? You do love yourself more. What does that mean?
So it's like all the parts, like, it's like releasing self-judgment. I think
Mm.
that's what the bigger thing equated to, because I'm only able to come fully out of that, I say, is because I release self-judgment. Like, I've told people my whole life, like, oh, I hear a voice, and then back in the day I used to feel the judgment from them, like, that bitch fucking hears a voice, that bitch is crazy, like, I heard a voice and moved to Costa Rica, packed up my shit and moved there. I would tell people,
Yeah.
and people, oh, how'd you get here? Oh, I heard a voice to move here. And then I would see the judgment, right? And so then I was like, okay, that started me. I got to release self-judgment, because when I released, and I think me and you even talked about this, because when you were like, I didn't fucking like you when I met you, and I was like, that's okay, because I didn't feel that, because I'm not judging myself. And so
Yeah.
that for me is like it. When we practice releasing self-judgment, and not maybe every single day for a long time, then maybe, there's a few days in there that it's all, gravy and flowy, but releasing self-judgment. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's gonna come back again. And
Yeah.
like you said, the thing in me that didn't like you at that
Yeah.
time is the part of me you are living in your pure authenticity.
Yes.
And I was not,
Yes. Yeah.
right? I was so early on my journey
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah.
And I was just like so in shock by the you-ness of you. And that's what I needed to be like, yeah, it's not gonna feel good at all because you not there, girl.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, bam. It like that's the whole like we have to make you uncomfortable enough so you can move, so you'll grow. Because if you don't experience that, like, this isn't right. Well, guess what? This is what's possible.
Yeah.
And you got to feel that pain of discomfort. Sometimes pain is just discomfort. It's just like, I don't like it. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, that's okay. You can not like it. You ain't
Yeah.
gonna die, right? You just don't like it. And then you sit with it and then you figure some shit out about yourself.
Yeah.
And it's showing up for you as a mirror to let you know you can come here. You can get over here.
Exactly. Yeah, because everything is temporary. And that mirror, if you can start to live in the mirror theory of like, if something upsets you, you don't like something, if you get heat in your body, if it causes emotional reaction, if you can live in that mirror practice. So the Queer Eye show on Netflix, back in the day it was like one group of people, and then now it's like a new group of people. And Jonathan. So I remember watching the first episode of Jonathan on this new series. And I'm like, this motherfucker. Like, look at this motherfucker. That's what I did. Look at this motherfucker. It's like, interesting. So I thought of that for like a week. I marinated all that. And I was like, what the fuck? And it was like, oh, he's you. He's unapologetically himself. That's you.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's my fucking favorite. I follow him on Instagram. You know what I mean? Maybe he goes by they, excuse me, but it is that mirror, like,
Yes.
Jonathan's unapologetically themselves,
Yeah.
and authentic. It struck a chord in me, and I was like, oh, that's me. So then I was like, oh, there's more healing and energy and love that can now go in a little bit more. Like that is always,
Yeah.
like there's always a mirror. Like I tell people, like, so I released good or bad, positive, negative. I've released that from my life. So when I talk
Nice.
to clients, if they're still in that belief, I will still use those words for them. And in my
Yeah.
own life, I have taken those out. For me, more, it's about, oh, there's more, that's a direction that more love and energy can be directed towards, you know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's where
Judging.
I can put more growth or more, yeah, I can put more energy into that, or
Yeah.
I cannot put as much energy into that.
Well, more for me, like, if something shows up for me, then love
Yeah.
be guided there, because once love is guided there and penetrates there, ah, that's everything.
That's all it needed. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I just want to do a like it's not a question or anything. It's just the synergy. When you said you heard a voice to go to Costa Rica, that same thing happened to me when I was in Myanmar to come to Cambodia, because people always say like, well, how did you get to Cambodia? Why? And I literally just woke up one morning and my whole body was just like, it's time to go.
Yeah.
It's time to go. You got to go right now. And I had just gotten a room. I was in like a volunteer um, center, and you don't always get a bed. So you go in and then you sleep in like the monastery. You're sleeping on the floor for a while until like a bed opens. And I just got it. So it's like my first night. I didn't even sleep in it yet. I just was setting up my bed and it was like, boom, you got to
Mm.
go. You're going to Cambodia. And I was just like, what? All right, packed up. And I'm like, okay, where do I go? And then my friend was like, you go to this island, you go directly there, don't stop. And it's like, okay, that's just,
Yeah.
these things happen. It's intuition, right? You just feel it, you get told, and then you follow it.
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
wanted to,
There is, so there's a theory out there that either you see it, you feel it, you sense it, or like, so I've debunked that fucking theory, because I do all that. And so,
yeah,
it's not just like you have one intuitive gift, right? So all of
right.
us, I believe empaths, healers, all of us. And we're also born with innate gifts that are unique to us, right?
Yes.
So like when I took my Reiki 2 certification, there was a girl in there that could see organs. So like when she put her hands on people, she could see their organs. And I was like, motherfucker, I want to fucking see.
Wow.
And, and then I've learned over the years, like, that's her gift. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like where, you know, feed the energy on strengthening those gifts that continue to show up. And also, if you're a seer, you can also be a feeler. If you're
Yeah.
a healer, you can also be a seer. Like whatever that is, the more that we just get out of our own way and allow things to show up. So in yoga teacher training, I started seeing color again. So I saw color when I was young. So I saw everything in color. Everything was always in color. I would tell my mom always, like, oh, that is over here, you know. And so in yoga teacher training, that came back. And I started seeing everything in color. And then one day in Costa Rica, I woke up, I could see energy lines on people's bodies. Yeah. And
what do you mean by color? Like what, like, because we all, you know, most people see in color, the sighted, but like, what do you mean by you can see
like
color?
like everything's in color. So like not just like an aura of color. Like I see color everywhere. Like, you know, it's like a field of color for everything. So like even like this crystal, you know, hello, halite. This crystal, we see it as like black and white. But when I see it, I see a bunch of other color around it. And sometimes I see color in it.
Wow. Like people, objects, everything. The sky, like everything.
Everything. Yeah, I've seen portals before in the atmosphere. And I like, so there's days I wake up in the morning, like before I even get out of bed, I'll just open my eyes. And so I've seen air, you know, since I was young. And so now sometimes I wake up and like, it's super interesting. I call it the veils are thin today. I'm like, oh, the veils are thin today. It's because it's a different presence. And then those are the days where I'm like, oh, like what's going to show up today? Because this is like, you know, we can talk to all the dead people too, like super, not like super easy, but like it's easier on those days. Like there's days that are easier than others, which is also like, I know it's like a side note, but like, you know, we created a calendar. Do you know what I'm saying? And so when people talk about like Lion's Gate portal and shit like that, you know, it's also like, is it because we also created this calendar?
Yeah. Is the date that, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it's more like, you know, that, and that's something that I'm here to support women specifically in is like owning their unique gifts, owning their authenticity. So you can start making your own perceptions and perspectives and trusting that. And so I just trust like the veils are thin that day. Like when I just wake up, I even text some friends. Like I'm like, yo, dude, because I know like what they're working on, right? And I was like, yo, dude, like the veils are thin today. Sometimes I post that shit on Facebook and Instagram.
Utilize it. Yeah.
Utilize it, you know, like
yes.
It's super important. Like and then it's also another tip for me to like, okay, make sure you're like fully in your body today, Jeanie. Like use the color therapy, like support your root, you know, like be in that, because when the veils are thin, it's easier for us to float up and float out.
Yeah.
So we gotta support the human. Yeah, in that.
That's such a powerful tool. How do you use the color?
So I love color therapy. So the theory is that there's colors that are associated with the different chakras, root chakra being red, sacral chakra being orange, and so forth. And so when you can eat it, wear it, visualize it, the color, it will support you from the inside out. And for me, like, so with sexual abuse, I always loved the color orange, but if I tried to put it on my body, I would throw up.
Wow.
Okay. Since I was young, no orange. And then in my own evolution of my own healing through the sexual abuse, one day I was in the closet and the orange shirt said, "You can wear me today." And I was like, okay. Put it on. First time. I remember I fucking did the happy dance. And can wear orange now ever since. Like,
wow.
So for me, like I also got a message. So my friend was dating this woman who I met in Costa Rica. I didn't even like her. There's a lot of things about her that I was just like, fuck to the no. Like, I don't want to be friends with her. And then she left. And then I got the message, the voice told me you need to invite her to come into your home and live for 3 months.
Oh my God.
And I was like, what the fuck? Okay. You know, I trust it, you know? So I messaged her, we hooked up on Facebook, I messaged her and I said, listen, I got the message to invite you to my house for 3 months. It turns out like she was an addict. Like she was addicted to pills and different things. I was told never to put my hands on her, to only share wisdom and color therapy with her. She got diagnosed that she couldn't have kids. Well, in all this process, she healed from addiction and she got pregnant. And so just by color
Wow.
therapy and sharing wisdom, boom, like
Yeah.
shit is so powerful. And that's why, like, you know, a lot of people, like a lot of my clients are new to color therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, and I'm like, trust it. It's so fucking powerful. And for me, it's such a simple thing that we can do every day, right?
Yeah.
Because, right, so it's not meditating for an hour. It's like put on a red shirt, put on a
Yeah.
scarf, whatever it is for your chakras, you know, like,
Yep. You taught me this. It was
mhm.
my heart, right? You were like, eat green, wear green, see green, stand in green grass,
Be
surround
the
yourself with
green.
green plants, be the green in the world. And I did. I wore green.
Yeah.
I mean, this stuff just happened. I had a mandala chosen for me. Not a mandala. Forgetting the name of beads.
Oh,
Whatever.
yeah,
Mala.
I had mandalas like
Mandala. Yeah, like mandala, mala. Yeah. Mala beads were like a forest agate
mm.
swirls of green that I wore for years. It was just like, green. I've always been attracted to green. I love green. It's just like, it's like, hello, because you need it. Like, keep on that path. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh
tattooed
my gosh.
the heart
So good.
chakra. I don't know if you I tattooed the heart chakra
Oh, yeah.
years ago. Um, you know, as that reminder, like when we walk, you know, we kind of walk like this. It's like always to lead with my heart. Always to lead with my heart. And that's for me, like, I know that I live an abundant life because of my heart. I know a friend of
Mm.
mine and I were just talking the other day, like it's not luck. It has nothing to do with luck. Like I have friends all around the world. I know if I called them today and be like, "Hey, I'm coming," they'd be like, "Your bed's ready." Like, you know, it's
Yep.
like because of my heart. Like and continue to live from the heart space.
From love. Yep.
Not from love. And Carolyn Miss,
Mm-hmm.
like MYSS, I love her so much. Like I
Mm-hmm.
read a lot of her books and you know, Anatomy of the Spirit also, you know,
Oh,
whoever's
yeah.
listening,
It's one of
doesn't
my favorites.
but she talks about, you know, like aligning the heart and the mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember when I first moved to Costa Rica, I tried to live in like rainbows and unicorns land. Like everything's rainbows and unicorns, you know. And then like I don't know how many months of that, you know, the voice was like, "Are you done with that? Are you done with that? Because that's just not real life." And it's like, oh, actually, I think it was like 2 years in actually. And then it was like, oh yeah, I gotta be both. And I remember reading that book and she talked about that. She's like, oh yeah, because I'm both. And now I understand, like for me, my language is a human and spirit. It's because like when
Yeah.
I was married and lived in did corporate life, I lived in one land. I lived in the world of logic and human land.
Oh, yeah.
I was forgetting my intuition and my spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I live in both. And that's my intention every day is to live in both.
Yeah. This is that dance that you're talking about. This is what I refer to with people that like, I don't want to levitate and float off into the ether. I don't want to be pure spirit. And I don't want to be on the earth all the time. Right. Because I also lived that life. So many people do this, right? They're in the matrix for, now, and they're really in it. And there's absolutely no space for that connection to outside, beyond, to my spirit self, to my heart.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we take the time that we need and deserve and are worthy of to just let it back in? Because it's always been with us, like you're saying, as from a child, you could see things, you could feel things, you could sense, you knew, you had wisdom. Like, I don't know how I know, but I just know this, right? And so we got to make these little steps. I always say that we'll use 1% as an example with clients. Like, what's the 1% action you could take to shift it a little bit more into where you're wanting to go as opposed to where you are now.
Yeah. Yeah. And finding joy. I think, like, where I feel like joy, like when I reconnected to joy, I did that through a yellow lab who I found on the side of the road. I had gone 4 years without a dog, which is like unheard of for me.
Yeah.
Because I chose at that time to listen to my partner who didn't want a dog. So I chose that. And then one day I was like, fuck this. She came to me in a dream. 2 weeks before we found each other, she came to me in a dream. Then I heard the voice say, change your background of your computer to a yellow lab. I did. And then one day on the way to work, there she was. And she connected me back to nature. I forgot about nature, for a long time. I was just, that logic, human mind world. That's where I was living. Corporate America too. And she connected me back to nature, connected me back to joy. That fucking game changer. Like real joy. Like joy where like, my 5-year-old girl comes out and fucking just celebrates her shit. Like, smiles and does all that. I had a boyfriend that would say that. Like, every time you smile, your 5-year-old girl shows up and like comes out. And I was like, thank you. I love that.
Yeah, she's happy.
She's fucking happy.
Yeah. That's amazing. All right. Just for the sake of time, what is time? But it is ticking away. With all that we've said today and shared, what are the superpowers that are yours specifically? And how do you use these to support others?
So I think my superpower is that voice, is that intuitive voice that guides me. I think first and foremost, like that is it. When I listen to that voice, it guides me in all the directions that serve highest self for myself and also for my clients. And trust. Fucking trust. And to be able to navigate in that voice, in that intuitive space for myself and for others, then the whole world just shows up. Like I had a client that came to me. I met her on a retreat, and I also scared her. She told me that I'm fucking scared of you. I said, that's okay. When you're ready to see me, you will. So that's another gift for sure I have. Like I can see truth, and what I realized is like, unless someone's ready to live in their truth, Jeannie, they're not going to be able to we're just not going to be together,
Can't be in your presence. Yeah.
Yeah. She messaged me and she's like, I need to learn protection practices. I said, okay, then that's what we'll do. I have to meet people where they are. And what she realized in the journey, because she trusted the journey that we started going on, was how much she gave away her energy all the time to other people, even the person on the side of the road working construction. So it wasn't about protection techniques that you needed to learn. It was about how to live in your body and understand the power within, and to understand your power and your unique gifts. That's what I do.
Yes. Beautiful. And if there was a way that you could share with people who are experiencing some of, maybe what you've described, it really resonates with them. Maybe they, can see color or hear the voice or, anything that you've mentioned. What advice or, guidance would you bestow on them as it relates maybe to your human body, physical, or maybe something else that you feel is powerful to share?
To trust it, to take action towards that. So for instance, if your intuition guides you to do something, the more that you listen, the more it strengthens. Bam, like bam. And release self-judgment.
Yeah.
Self-judgment, because the more that you do that, your authentic self just fucking shows up.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's such great wisdom. Yeah. And then how can people find you? How can they, what specifically, what are some ways that you are serving people? How are you helping people, working with them?
I facilitate women's retreats around the world. I also, I do an intuitive embodiment coaching. I have a 3-month and a 6-month program, really to root people in their body, and 6 months to like rebirth and awaken themselves to dance in that human and the spirit. My website is IamJeanieBaker.com, JeanieBaker. And you can find me on the Instagrams and also on the Facebooks at Intuitive Soul Coaching Retreats. And then I also started a podcast with a friend of mine. Well, she started a podcast. You're so fucking enlightened. And she asked me to be a co-host in season 2. So we're doing that as well.
Amazing. I love it.
Thank you.
And yeah, I just want to express once again how grateful I am for your wisdom and your openness to share your experience, because I do believe that people need to hear exactly what, the conditions were like for you, so that they can recognize that they are the same. Just like you said, we're all the same and we share this experience. So thank you so, so much for being willing to share yours and for being so authentic for so long and for awakening all of this in me and for impacting my life in such a deep way.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I feel the best, the best guides, the best teachers, the best healers, however you want to word that is, it's what we're willing to go from ourselves, and what we're really like, what we're willing to dive into and feel and heal from. Like abandonment, like for me, like I serve the people that I have experience with, and that I tell people all the time, I'm only going to ask you to go where I have been before, or I'm willing to go. Bam, that's it. Yeah. It's like, I'm not a personal trainer, I'm a fucking
Right.
emotional imprint disruptor. Like, let's fucking get this shit so you can,
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's my jam. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Emotional imprint disruptor.
Yeah,
Break
baby.
that shit. Break the cycles.
Break
Yes.
the cycle. Yes. And
Yes.
there's so many of us, just side note, y'all who's listening, I know you've gotten the call, because those of us here to break the cycle, you've gotten the fucking call. You've gotten it. You've gotten it when you were young. You felt it. It's time to fucking act on it. And trust me, you're supported and safe. There's people like me. There's people like Beth. We're here for you. Like, there's people to support the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Reach out.
Yeah.
Reach out. Exactly. There's no difference. You're not crazy. I used to say you're not weird, but I love the weird. So I also love the crazy, like.
I love crazy. It's all about the words. I love it. Right? Yeah, that's words are power, and like depending on the charge for you behind a word.
Right.
People call me weird, crazy. I'm like, I'm right here, baby.
Yep, that's me. Hi.
I'm here.
I'm more of all that. Yes. And so how should we close? How can we honor this magical connection today? How should we end?
So I would like to close it with something that I learned in a Temescal in Costa Rica. And it was from a grandmother of the Lakota Indian tribe. And she shared this with us. And now I fucking just like, it is everything. I am you, you are me. And repeat that back to you.
I am you, you are me.
Love you.
Love you too, Jeanie. Thank you so much.
Nice little bird in the background. I have you and you are me too. I said, yes.
Yes. Yes. I also want to give ourselves a hug.
Yeah.
So raise those arms up and then hug it all in, because we need 8 of these a day just to be, just to feel good. I exist.
I love
I
it.
am love.
I am
Yeah.
love. My boy, I think he's so funny because he comes over. He comes over usually to hug me every time, like on my after my coaching clients. He just comes right over.
Oh, look at them. Hello. Oh, love you guys.
Love you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Jeanie. Everything that you're doing, I'm just so amazed by how much, how many retreats you're doing and in these like incredible locations and touching so many lives. Like, I just, holy shit. Not that it's a surprise. It's just like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it seems like you've hit on, that like golden path.
The resilience, resilience for me is a word for entrepreneurship. Resilient.
Yeah.
Especially for those of us that are like solopreneurs and like are doing everything ourselves.
Right.
That is for me like that's the word.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like it's super interesting because I've had some different things show up in the last 12 months around my business, and then just understanding where I'm being guided to and directed the most. And like for me, living anywhere I want to live and being able to serve people has been like my like message for a really long time. Even when I moved to St. Pete, like when I moved to St. Pete last year, I thought St. Pete was going to be it for a while. And then in September, this whole thing showed up about my Italian citizenship and to fucking do it. And I was like, okay. And everything here was just pointing for another part of my own evolution and healing. It was not for my business. Like it's super interesting. Like super interesting. Because a lot of people here, like this west side of Florida is like a different, it's like Austin for Texas, like it's a different vibe, but it's also like a lot of fake shit here. Like everybody is in the healing space. Everybody is in like the spiritual awakening shit. And like you're 22 and you're a coach. And like, what the fuck are you gonna coach me about?
Yeah, exactly.
And I talk to a lot of people and they're like, oh, I'm doing this, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, awesome. Let's talk about your personal journey with that. Like, how have you embodied that in your life? Like, oh, well, I just did my certification. I'm like, yeah, that's completely different.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's why I appreciate like you and me are of that embodiment. Like, okay, what are we working on? What are we healing from? What are we healed from? And then let's share the experiences with the people.
Yeah, exactly. Let's let them know.
Let them know. Yeah.
And what you need on that process, we here for you.
Exactly. This background shit is totally tripping me out that it's like a thing. I just like, it's so interesting to me. I know.
I know when I first moved, my clients and friends were like, I love your space.
I know.
I'm like, me too. I handpicked it off of Etsy. I can't have this. I'm a nomad.
That's fucking cool. Yeah, I'm like, are you renting Airbnb or what are you doing? It's so nice.
Yeah. Sometimes I leave it on and it'll be like I'm filming like, a yoga class. So it'll be like me on top of that table back there. It's like a coffee table. I'm just gonna sit right on top of it,
That's so cute. I know I was looking at that painting over there, like the first one, and I was like, oh, I really like that a lot, like
I love this. I really do. Like, this is what I want the inside of my van to look like.
I know that's right. Are you getting a van?
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna do the van thing?
I'm gonna do like living out of a van for about a month, I think.
A month?
Yeah, we'll see. Once I get my visa submitted, and yeah, it'll be my little home on wheels.
I
Be
love that.
filming from there, get a solar panel, be charging up my stuff,
I
filming
love,
from wherever I am. Yeah,
yeah.
it feels really good, and it feels really challenging to be like moving all the time. But I'm like, okay, if I just have my little home with me,
Right, right.
then I'm already there. I'm already set
Yeah,
up. So
yeah.
yeah.
And then you can choose your locations, which I love. I mean, New Zealand's not that big, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's big in terms of driving across it, but
Okay.
yeah, it doesn't take all that. Like you could drive the whole length of the country if you really wanted to in a couple
Yeah,
days. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Exciting.
yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see your adventure.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm excited to have it. And I'm excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Ready to get rocking?
Yeah, let me have a little water.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, before we go, so basically we're just like, what do you want to talk about is like, when I first like, I didn't have terms for it then, but I don't want to go into that yet. But like, yes, from like inception of like knowing some shit, and then
Yeah.
like journey, and then where I am now. That's basically the synopsis, and then tools.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like gifts that came out of it, you know,
Yeah,
like what
for
you
sure.
do, what you're doing for people
Yeah,
with all of this, right? It's like this has brought, I mean, it's everything. It's like
everything is everything.
it's who you are, you know? It's like what you're here to do and be, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And that, it's interesting because that has been like in my own personal journey, like who I am is what I do, right? And so
Yeah.
there's also like I worked with an astrologer last year, year before last, 2022. I worked with her off and on, but she said something. She's like almost 80 years old, and she said something to me like, "Yeah, but Jeannie, it's not." And I was like, "Huh?"
Mhm.
Like I had labeled like so hard and identified so hard in that, like who I am is what I do, because it encompasses like everything. And then
Yeah.
it was like,
Yeah.
oh, like I can create some separation around that.
Mm.
And when she said that, I had to marinate on it for a while and let it process through me, and being like, oh, I get it. Because you can identify so much and like, yes, who I am is what I do. And like there's all these different parts of me that also does, whatever else I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was super interesting. Those of us that like choose like this, like who you are is what you do. Well, then also this other side of you or these other parts of you that I know about and that I honor, but also incorporating that in the wholeness. It's been interesting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's really beautiful to acknowledge the parts of us that aren't. I think as, you know, doing who we are, I like that a lot, you know. We lose, or we stand to tend more towards losing that connection to self outside of work, right? Because it doesn't feel like work anymore. It's so ingrained in, this
Right.
is, like you said, this is just me. This is just what I do. And so I share. And I also need to continuously come back to, I'm just doing this for me.
Yeah. 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 It's an interesting space, like, because when I meet people, we tend to share, what we know and maybe teach in that same time. And in my
Mhm.
personal life, over the last 18 months, I've actually shed some relationships in my life. It's been super interesting. Like the cosmos also supporting that a lot. And then now,
Mhm.
like in my personal life, I am only inviting people that XYZ,
Yeah.
are on a constant journey of self-discovery. Boom.
Yep.
If you're fucking in and out of that shit, I can support you in business for sure. I can support you, but in my personal life, and I think like that's where I've drawn
Mhm.
my own boundaries too, because I do have a lot of friends that are clients, and also,
Mhm.
it's like, having more friends that have been on a path longer than I have, and also that can share their wisdom with me versus me being the wisdom sharer.
Right. We need our own, like, medicine women.
Yeah, for sure.
Our own
Everybody.
crones, and
Yeah.
you know, the elders of our tribes.
Yeah.
Like my I have a tribal therapist who brought that forward. Like, who are you looking to be the mother figure in your life, the grandmother figure in your life?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, how are you making these choices?
Yeah.
How are
So that
you
astrologer,
discerning?
she's like one of those for me. Like, I've worked
Yeah.
with her on and off since 2020, and she's very nurturing, and she brings that, she brings that like more grandmother support of wisdom. And
Mm.
in a way, I've been calling, like, on my journey with my Italian citizenship, I've also been calling in my ancestors. My Italian ancestors are like support me on this journey. And in 2021, I worked with this local sound coach when I was in Ecuador. I don't know where she lived, but I like met all of my guides on this journey, and like I had known like who a few are. They had revealed itself, but also like I'm the person that like Archangel Michael. That's not my fucking guide. Like, if I like call on the archangels, like, no, dude, we're not your fucking guides. I'm like, yeah, like I know, you know what I mean, like. And then, like, when it revealed itself, my great grandmother, my Italian great grandmother, Angelina, she's one of my guides. Like, she came through in 2021. And then in this journey through ancestry and like finding documents, I found a picture of her, and it's her. Do you know what I mean? It's who revealed themselves in 2021. Like, you can't make that shit up. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just
Yeah.
now I'm calling on the wisdom of her supporting me on my journey. Like, yeah. Because I lost my mom when I was 27. And so, and not having a relationship with my father, since I'm 20 for good reason. And so it is like, I have felt like, oh, I'm on this journey alone. And then, as I've opened myself up to receive more and more and more, like you open up to the abundance of support that is actually really there. And like, even through the astral planes, or like whatever the fuck we want to call that, it's like having the support, like even with my mom, like now, like we had a huge transformation of our journey a few years ago, and now I call upon her like to support me, like, and never thought I'd do that because I had supported her so much in the physical life.
Yeah.
And now it's like, that's super fucking interesting.
Wow. Thanks for sharing all that. This is
Yeah.
amazing already.
That's part of, so that's also what I miss, like we met in Costa Rica, and what I loved about that 7 years experience there, I met people from everywhere, right? And we like constant conversations. Like that was my life, in constant experience conversations with people. And I miss that. Like living in the US, like people have to work so hard all the time to like live, and it's like people have a hard time like getting together and like just having conversation without an agenda or whatever. And I miss that. Like that is part of a life experience that I want more of. I want to meet people from all around the world who have all different kind of life experiences and just gather and have conversation. And then we may never see each other again. And that's okay. Right? Like I miss that. Yeah, I miss that. Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get it.
Yeah, for sure. Like I
get
feel
it
that.
back. Yep.
Yeah. 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 It's been a big part. I taught a manifesting course. My first course actually online was a series. And part of that was like, for me, it's really about lifestyle. Like what kind of lifestyle you want to fucking create? Because at the end of the day, like it comes down to that. Like what kind of lifestyle do you want? And like I've gotten really clear just being here, which is always like, it turned out so different than I thought, it would be.
Yeah, of course. Right. We could never know.
Yeah, always. Always.
Awesome. Well, cool. I'm just going to do a little formal intro to the
Good.
podcast here and then speak to who you are. I'm so excited.
Me too.
Ah,